Hey everyone, Brandon here from TruckSafe. Ensuring commercial drivers are properly qualified to operate heavy trucks or buses is, of course, a major part of complying with federal and state motor carrier safety regulations. And DOT road tests are an important component of driver qualification. But who exactly is subject to these DOT road tests, and when must they be conducted and by whom? Those are the types of questions we're tackling in this video, so stay tuned and do us a favor by clicking the like and subscribe buttons below. It really should come as no surprise that federal and state safety regulations focus very heavily on driver qualification, since defects in a driver's qualification routinely contribute to significant accidents. For that reason, Part 391 of the Federal Safety Regulations contains dozens of rules carriers must follow before allowing an individual to operate a commercial vehicle on public highways. Things like pre-employment drug screens, background investigations, and motor vehicle reports, just to name a few. Arguably, one of the more critical aspects of driver qualification is the DOT road test. Unlike some of the more paper-driven aspects of that process, the road test gives prospective employers the opportunity to physically observe a driver candidate's ability or inability to safely operate the types of trucks or buses that the carrier will be expecting them to operate day in and day out. It's the carrier's chance to keep drivers off the road if they aren't proficient in the basic operation of these vehicles. So when exactly are DOT road tests required? Well, as a general rule, Section 391.31 of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations provides that a person shall not drive a commercial motor vehicle unless they have first successfully completed a road test and have been issued a certificate of driver's road test in accordance with this section. Simply put, anyone who intends to operate a, quote, commercial motor vehicle must first pass a DOT road test. Now, as we've discussed in other videos, the term commercial motor vehicle, for this purpose and others, generally includes any vehicle or combination that, number one, weighs more than 10,000 pounds, number two, is designed or used to transport 9 passengers for compensation or more, or 16 passengers or more not for compensation, or number three, is used to transport placardable quantities of hazmat. If you run a business and require individuals to operate any of these types of vehicles as part of that business, then you're generally subject to the road test requirement. But what kind of regulation would this be if it didn't contain some exemptions, right? So there are, in fact, a couple of primary exemptions from the road test requirement. Specifically, Section 391.31 of the Federal Safety Regulations says that in place of and as equivalent to the road test, a person who seeks to drive a commercial motor vehicle may present and a motor carrier may accept either a valid commercial driver's license, CDL, or number two, a copy of a valid certificate of driver's road test issued to that driver within the preceding 3 years. So in short, motor carriers are permitted, but not required, to accept a driver applicant's CDL or a road test certificate from another employer issued in the past 3 years as equivalent to a road test in lieu of administering a new one. The rationale for the first exemption is that drivers who hold a current CDL have already passed a skills test in order to obtain the CDL in the first instance, and so should, theoretically, be qualified to operate the types of vehicles they are licensed to drive. And the second exemption is really just a way to accommodate drivers who have been recently road tested by another employer. I should reiterate here that just because these exemptions are on the books doesn't mean that carriers are required to observe them or that they're a good idea. In fact, many carriers, including some of the largest in the country, choose to ignore them. Why is that? Well, it really goes back to the significant exposure that comes from allowing unqualified drivers to operate large trucks and buses. Some carriers just don't trust that drivers who possess a CDL or have been recently road tested by another employer are actually proficient at driving these vehicles. They would rather be safe than sorry by conducting their own road test and putting eyes on all new drivers and their ability to operate commercial vehicles. That's certainly their prerogative. Importantly, for carriers that do choose to take advantage of these particular exemptions, the regulation goes on to require that they retain a legible copy of the CDL or the road test certificate in its files as part of the driver qualification file. I should also note that drivers who will be operating commercial vehicles requiring either a double or triple trailer or tank vehicle endorsement are not eligible for the so-called CDL exemption, meaning they must be road tested. Okay, assuming a road test is required, what must that test entail? Well, the regulation answers this question as follows. The road test must be of sufficient duration to enable the person who gives it to evaluate the skill of the person who takes it at handling the commercial motor vehicle and associated equipment that the motor carrier intends to assign to that particular driver. At a minimum, the person who takes the test must be tested while operating the type of commercial motor vehicle the motor carrier intends to assign to that person on their skill at performing each of the following operations. The pre-trip inspection requirement, coupling and uncoupling of combination units, if the equipment they'll drive includes combination units, placing the commercial motor vehicle in operation, use of the commercial motor vehicle's controls and emergency equipment, operating the commercial motor vehicle in traffic and while passing other motor vehicles, turning the commercial motor vehicle, braking and slowing the commercial motor vehicle by means other than braking, and backing and parking the commercial motor vehicle. And how must these road tests be documented? Well, according to the regulation, the motor carrier must provide a road test form on which the person who gives the test shall rate the performance of the person who takes it at each operation or activity which is a part of the test. After they complete the form, the person who gave the test shall sign it. And a copy of the signed road test certificate must be kept in each driver's qualification file for the length of their employment, plus an additional 3 years thereafter. All right, lastly, let's discuss who can administer DOT road test. Per section 391.31, DOT road test must be given by the motor carrier or a person designated by it. More specifically, the test shall be given by a person who is competent to evaluate and determine whether the person who takes the test has demonstrated that they are capable of operating the commercial motor vehicle and associated equipment that the motor carrier intends to assign to them. Now, ideally, the person administering the road test will hold the same or a higher license class or type than what's required to operate the vehicles in question. In sum, DOT road tests are an important component of the federal and state motor carrier safety regulations. Carriers who hire or otherwise engage drivers to operate regulated vehicles must generally administer road tests and ensure that all new drivers are competent at operating the types of commercial vehicles they will be expected to operate. Copies of the road test certificates must be kept in each driver's qualification file. All right, that's going to wrap things up for this video. For even more in-depth information about these types of regulatory topics, be sure to check out our innovative online compliance courses for safety managers and for drivers over at trucksafeacademy.com. Also, be sure to check out our detailed compliance articles on our website at trucksafe.com. Subscribe to our newsletter over at trucksafe.com/subscribe and follow us on our various social media pages for the latest highway transportation news and analysis. Thanks for watching.